It is now 7:01. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Pastor? Here. Mr. Manchester?
Here.
Mr. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
Mr. Grabart?
Here.
Mr. Hyland?
Here.
Dr. Milliken?
Here.
Mrs. Woodard?
Here.
Mr. Hitchcock?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mrs. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Milazzo?
Here.
Mr. Madel?
Here.
Mr. Strange?
Here.
Mrs. Draxler?
Here, all accounted for. Motion to accept the minutes
So moved.
by Mr. Milazzo, seconded by Mr. Pastrick. Is there any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to accept communications 10-01 to 10-11 by Mr. Pastrick, seconded by Mr. Sweet. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We come to the portion of public comments. We will ask you to please speak for 5 minutes and come up to this podium when you are asked. If you are representing somebody than yourself, please say who that is. Otherwise, please state your name and your address. We will start on this side of the room this time. Anybody in the front row over here, on my right, your left, wishes to speak? This side.
We've determined that we'd like me to go first, ma'am.
I determine who goes first. I determine who goes first, ma'am.
I understand that, but we would really like to start off. If you could give us this courtesy, please. Please. Come and sit here.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Colleen Boland, and I'm a resident of Elmira, the 11th District. I am an Air Force retiree, a member of Elmira's and Friends Against Fracking. And I'm here again to reiterate and reemphasize my opposition to the expansion of the landfill. With over 100 people coming to the microphone and 300 public comments sent to you, we're very, very concerned that we haven't heard from you. And we would like that, we're here tonight to say that we would like that to end. We would like to have a dialogue with you. We'd like to meet you individually. And we'd like to understand where you're at after 9 months of coming to talk to you. What is your plan for addressing our concerns? We haven't heard that, and we believe that we deserve that. We've tried to respect these proceedings, and in turn, we would like to ask you to respect us. So given that, we have from People for a Healthy Environment, Elmira's and Friends Against Fracking, the Alliance, the Chemung County Alliance, and the folks down in Lawman, excuse me, I forget that one, I'm not a part of it. We'd like to read this message to the Chemung County Legislature. Since January, you have heard over 100 presentations at your monthly meetings and received hundreds of pages of written documents. Taken together, people's spoken and written comments demonstrate strong public opposition to the proposal to more than double the amount of waste accepted at the Chemung County landfill. The opposition has grown because of increased awareness that A, the plan is designed to enable the dumping of a vastly increased tonnage of radioactive drill cuttings from fracking operations in Pennsylvania, posing additional health risks to a county which already ranks near the bottom of the state in overall health measures. B, the plan threatens the drinking water of Chemung County residents, as well as those downstream, since the leachate from the landfill is transported to and processed at the wastewater treatment facilities in Elmira, where it is not tested and treated for radioactivity before being discharged into the Chemung River. C, alpha and beta radiation inherent in Marcellus drilling waste. And D, pose a serious health risk the county's landfill monitors cannot test for alpha and beta radiation, which is likely to result in long-term environmental contamination. As a result of growing concerns about radioactivity in drilling waste, including drill cuttings, 13 counties in New York and several states have enacted or are in the process of developing legislation banning the acceptance of this waste. 4 bills have been introduced in the New York Senate to do the same. Therefore, It is imperative that the Chemung County Legislature act to, 1, reject the current proposal and any future proposals for expansion of the Chemung County landfill. 2, mandate that Chemung County cease and desist from accepting drilling waste of any kind from any source. 3, mandate that any shale gas drilling waste currently deposited in the Chemung County landfill be removed. 4, decrease the size of the landfill by restricting its use for waste generated in Chemung County rather than continue to practice the practice of accepting huge volumes of waste from downstate and other areas. 5, and lastly, institute an aggressive reduce, reuse, and recycle program to decrease the amount of waste annually deposited in the Chemung County landfill. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you will give us the courtesy of starting a dialogue. Thank you.
Anybody else in the front row? On this side.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking. I have appeared once before and spoken, and although I personally don't like repeating myself, I have reason to want to reiterate my primary argument the first time I spoke, because I've heard in various publications that this is hearsay, that some legislators said that everyone was just objecting to fracking, drillings, etc., and nobody was speaking to the expansion of the landfill itself as a separate thing. And I wanted to reiterate my original position as a, by the way, my name is Freda Black. I live in the town of Chemung. And when my family moved here some 32 years ago, we saw the landfill, this very, very low thing set way back. And since I've been paying taxes, I know that there's a small fee in my yearly property taxes that pays for the land for the landfill. And it was my understanding that this landfill was originally conceived as a landfill for locally produced household garbage, construction waste, what have you. And the size of the property is such that it could serve for generations until such time as we can reduce our waste to near zero. And that on that simple argument that this landfill was never conceived as a money-making proposition for Casella or anyone else, that I objected to its being enlarged. I am also concerned about the nature of what is going there. And so in addition, I do object to the bringing in of shale cuttings that do contain radioactivity. I'm here representing myself and my neighbors, the kinds of neighbors who talk to me and express their concerns, but are not the kind of people to just show up. But I feel that I can be their voice. And I want to assure you that of my friends, which includes people who were born here, their parents and grandparents were born here, that they have a feeling when I invite them to come, I get some answers such as, oh, those people, they don't care what we think. They're just in it for themselves. I assure you, this is not what I would say. But this is a feeling that is expressed by a local person who was born here, raised his family here, and will retire here and spend his whole life here. And I try to convince them, I've even invited them to come with me to speak to our legislator. And they demur because they say, oh, they're not going to listen to us. And I don't feel that way, I assure you. I really believe that you are people that are in public service because you want to do the best for your community, but you're faced with a push and pull from various interests. I want to, though, say something about politics and politicians in a larger scale, because I listen to a lot of news. I'm tired of hearing of Democrats supporting this and Republicans objecting to that, and I'm tired of a legislature in Washington, D.C. that gets nothing done because everybody is sitting and kicking the can down the road and figuring if we sit here long enough, there'll be another election and maybe we'll take over that time. As far as I'm concerned, there is no us and them. There's only people. And I look at all of you, and I know that some of you don't hold the same political positions, social positions, the same, but we are all people. We're people with families. Some of our families look different than other families, but we all want the same thing. We want a healthy place to live. We want our children to be safe. We want to retire without worry. We don't want to worry about a war coming to our shores. We don't want to worry about terrorism, and we don't want to worry about an insidious disease winding up in ourselves or our loved ones.
Your 5 minutes are up, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else? First, second, third row.
Hello, my name is Joseph Calderon, I live in the town of Catlin. And I'm here representing a group called the Catlin Windbreakers. And although this is a different issue, I believe that there are some comparisons to what's happening in Chemung, in Lowland with the landfill, and that's that what you have is you have a small community, we're about 2,500 or so, and you have a large corporation that's coming into our community and influencing local politics, and they want to put up some wind turbines. They want to put up a wind farm in our town. Well, we've had many hearings regarding these wind farms, and there has not been one person that has approached the podium in any of these public hearings that has extolled the virtues of putting these up in our town. They're 450 feet high, and as there are more wind turbine production across the world, more health issues are emerging regarding this. Also, there's a question of land values, property values going down in the vicinity of these wind farms. So, and then there's the issue of resources. The air as a resource is just as much as water, just as much as natural gas. And when a community has resources taken away from it and without just compensation, the community must raise questions as to whether or not there is a benefit to industrializing in this method. So we believe in community-based renewables as a long-term strategy. We don't think that 30 people signing leases should determine the will of the entire community in the town of Catlin. I feel so strongly about this that I'm running as a write-in candidate for town supervisor, and I thank you for listening to me.
Hi, I'm here representing myself, Mary Finneran from Green County. Forgive me for that. My mother, who is deceased and lived in the Chemung Valley for 58 years. And again, as I did before the evenings, my mother wrote an essay about what we have to do about the future, and I want to read just a little bit of it to you. One of our main responsibilities of our lives is to leave this world environmentally warm, welcoming, and healthful for our children and grandchildren. They do not need to look out their windows onto oil rigs, gas platforms, deserted when their resource is exhausted, leaving gray, grassy turf poisoned by the toxic water returning from the shale extraction. When she was in the hospital, she was over here at St. Joe's. And every day I'd look out the window, and as I said before, the first time I came here, I'd seen 6 eagles on my way down here. The next time I saw none. But this time, every day looking out the window, there was one eagle. And at times he'd be joined by 1 or 2 more, flying over the Chemung, and we could see him heading down south towards Wellman, coming back up again. I want that to be embedded in your brain, these things about the eagles, because every time you come in here, I want you to see that eagle, and that eagle, and that eagle, and that eagle, and realize that no eagles will be able to survive the water being poisoned by the leachate from Chemung County, from Chemung County. And I want you to remember that. And every time you come in here, I want you to see this eagle, and I want you to remember that that is their fate. This will just be a myth. It will be a myth that we remember. And I grew up on Rattlesnake Hill. I want you to remember the rattlesnakes up too. So I thank you. I do hope you will stop this expansion and consider all the counties in New York State who are refusing the waste. The waste is not being produced here. We should not be taking it. It doesn't behoove us to be getting the waste from Pennsylvania and elsewhere. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maura Stevens. I am from Spencer, next to Van Etten. I share many things with my neighbors in Chemung County, although I live in Tioga County. I've been here, this is the 7th time I've been here in front of this body. I haven't spoken every time, but since February, I keep coming back. I keep waiting to hear the Chemung County Legislature respond to its constituents in some way. But I haven't heard that at all. I haven't heard even the acknowledgement that we are worthy of paying attention to. And I find that pretty horrifying. You are elected to represent the people of Chemung County, and I hope that you will respond to their requests for action, the demands that they've made this evening, and I hope they follow through and continue to pressure you to do so if you do not. It's really incredibly disdainful to treat people the way you have been treating them. So I just wanted to register that for the record.
Anybody else on the third?
My name is Mary Thorpe. I'm from Van Etten in Chemung County, and I've spoken here a few times, and I've had a couple of new points. And one point that I think you've heard before, but I just wanted to bring it up again. So I'll talk about that one first, and that's the exemptions that the gas industry has from Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, which is also called the Superfund Program, the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, and the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, also known as RCRA, and that's the one that's most pertinent here, because that's about the regulation of solid waste. And that was exempted for 2 years until the EPA could complete a study. And when the EPA completed the study, they concluded that regulation of hazardous oil and gas waste was unnecessary, despite the fact that they acknowledged that it was known to contain toxic substances, including benzene, lead, arsenic, somebody can't pronounce, barium, and uranium levels that exceeded 100 times EPA's own health-based standards. And this just could not remind me of when people in Galileo's time, the powers that be, insisted that the Earth was the center of the universe, contrary to Galileo's own scientific observations. And I just can't help but draw a parallel here. Just because you call something non-hazardous doesn't make it non-hazardous. Calling an apple an orange doesn't make it an orange. The second thing I haven't seen mentioned was that in Pennsylvania in 2013, radiation alarms were triggered 1,000 times. And 600 of those truckloads were sent elsewhere because Pennsylvania wouldn't accept them. Probably some of those loads came here, but I hear that radiation alarms are not triggered here. Why is that? Some kind of a disconnect there. Something to be asking about. And last week, there was an article in the Star Gazette that you may have seen. Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania has levied a $4.5 million fine against a gas filler whose waste impoundment liner leaked through more than 200 holes, filling streams, springs, groundwater, killing trees and vegetation. And we've talked about the liners and wondering how well they hold up. Well, here's an example where they did not hold up. And a fine of $4.5 million is at stake. I consulted with a lawyer who said that indeed legislatures can be sued. If I were a resident living around a contaminated aquifer, well, I'd sure be thinking about that, and I hope you'll think about it too.
I'm Paula Cartonen from Spencer. I substitute teach in Spencer Renneton Schools. And I just want to comment on a couple of things that have been bothering me for quite a while. Our former Spencer town supervisor made a comment at a town board meeting when we were talking to him about fracking. He's been a farmer for many years, owns a huge farm. He wants to lease his land for gas drilling. And he said, we've been using chemicals for years and we're not dead yet. This is a very commonly expressed attitude that really disturbs me, because when you're exposed to chemicals, it's not going to hit you right away. You're not going to drop dead or even get cancer right away, but it may cause a below par state in people's health for a long time. Waste has been piling up at the landfill for a long time, and it's an unknown mix of chemicals. I wonder what are the cumulative effects of all these chemicals. We know that some of them by themselves have very serious effects according to the EPA. We already know that. When you combine them, we have no idea what happens. Secondly, I was at the landfill when Howie Hawkins went there, the candidate for governor, went there to learn about it. It was a very windy day, and just driving towards the landfill, dust was blowing up off the top. You could see it from quite a distance. This was spreading all over. Who knows where it landed, in the water, people's yards, could have landed on people or animals. Who knows what it contained and who or what breathed it in. Probably ended up on people's gardens. And I don't think it was good stuff. Thirdly, you received some information about a symposium that's going to take place in Corning on Saturday. There's a program called TerraCycle that's going to be represented. The symposium is called Solutions. Spencer Renneton schools have participated in the program called TerraCycle. The schools collect items that aren't normally recycled by the counties, and they send them with free shipping to TerraCycle, which pays the school. It's a very lucrative program for the school, I've been told by the manager of the program. A group I belong to called Save SBE, Save Spencer Renneton, is making plans right now to bring the program into the villages of Spencer and Renneton. The company has an excellent reputation as a recycling company. They collect all kinds of stuff, like pens, shoes, Ziploc bags, things that, mascara tubes, deodorant cases, things that you can't put in your recycling. This is something that the county should be involved in. I suspect in the future, accepting toxic waste will be banned in all landfills. I think that's coming. And I hope you'll look to, can't read my writing, alternatives like these. Thank you.
Doug Kushon, PhD, Elmira, Chemung County, and glad to be here tonight. And thanks for taking the time to listen. You are here, we're here in Chemung County, home of the Chemung County landfill, which I prefer to call the dump, because that's where some pretty bad stuff gets dumped. This is a map pin. And there's a new map that has come out. It's called the Fracking Infrastructure Map. The program is You Are Here. Started by a group downstate, along with dozens and dozens of people upstate who are concerned about the build-out of fracking infrastructure. And the purpose of this map, we decided to educate the public, educate our elected officials about all of the dots on the map which represent toxic industrialization related to fracking. There's one up here, one down here, one over here, one here, but nobody really has a sense that that's all connected in one toxic web. But now they will be able to. You have that, the Central New York part of that map in front of you on a card with a URL directing you to a site where you can look up the map. It's an interactive map. You can go to the 4 dots that so far are on Chemung County, in Chemung County, press it, and a box will come up and explain just what happens there that's probably not real good for people's health. Now this map is just getting started. The dots you see on there look pretty sparse. In the whole state there are dozens of them. There will be hundreds within the next year or so as this map populates. There won't be much map left. There will be all these dots. It's interconnection of toxic industrialization. Now, why is that important? To you, to us? Because Chemung County is on that map in the form of the Chemung County landfill, which accepts radioactive waste from Pennsylvania. This map, and we are here, is available for everybody to see. Not just this legislature or the people in the gallery, but people all over the world. Excuse me. It's on Facebook, it's on Twitter. We have used it to educate our community, so I'm sending it out in email blasts, telling people, hey, listen, you really need to connect the dots to really understand what's happening to you. And one of the reporters asked me today, well, what are the harms that are happening right now? I said, there probably is, but the harm that's going to happen to most of the people is down the road. This toxic stuff takes its sweet time, and then it gets you. Somebody dies of cancer. Do you want this to be a legacy? I don't. Now let's get into something else. You are the only decision-making body, the only decision maker as a body that really counts in this situation. If you get pushed by your county executive, well, damn it, push back. Push back. You need to decide in favor of the health of the residents of your community. That's me, that's my family, and that's your family, your children, your grandchildren. We don't know who this is going to affect. There was a book you might have read to your children called The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, Dr. Seuss, do you remember? It's where somebody spilled some pink stuff, and they tried to clean it up. The cat tried to clean it up, but the more he tried to clean it up, the pinker everything got. This is what radioactivity that comes from deep down below where it should stay. This is what happens to it when it knows it's where a landfill. That landfill can't possibly keep all of that leachate.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you. And that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Next.
Hey everyone, this is the first time I've come before you. My name is Faith Meckley. I'm from Geneva, New York. And I just recently came back from a cross-country adventure. I was on the Great March for Climate Action from New Mexico until Ohio. And I had plans to be on all the way to our end destination in Washington, D.C., but I came home early because my home is in danger, and I need to be there to fight for my home. And I hope my comments aren't discounted or considered less valuable because I'm from Ontario County. Because as Doug so eloquently put it, we are in a web of toxicity. And as the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King once said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's why I'm here. So, fracking has not been approved in New York because it is dangerous and it requires extra review. And that's the current process that New York State is in. We are in a moratorium so that we can continue to review this process. I have walked through fracked states. Since May 24th until very recently, I have been walking across the United States. I have been through Colorado, I've been through Ohio, I've been through other highly industrialized areas. And right now, as I'm standing here, the rest of the climate march is making its way through Pennsylvania, which has become the poster child for fracking. And so I think I can say firsthand that this process is unsafe, it's dangerous, and it's not good for people in your community. And given this, I don't understand why it would even make a lick of sense to accept the waste from this process in a facility right here in Chemung County. That's just asking for it. It's a terrible, terrible idea. And I think that given the state that our planet is in at the moment, we shouldn't be even considering proposals for expanding a waste facility. We should be trying to figure out how to decrease our waste, how to be more resourceful, how to get out of a society that is buy and throw away repeatedly. Because it's destroying our local communities and it's destroying us on a much broader level. I think that the legislature should be considering a proposal right now to decrease the size of Chemung County landfill. I think that would make a lot more sense. And so I'd have to say that after, I think the number was you have received over 100 presentations like mine and hundreds of documents, not to mention submitted comments, in opposition to this expansion. And so I think if you approve this expansion at this point, we the people will know that you have been bought and sold by the corporations that now have equal rights as persons because of Citizens United. We will know that you are contributing to the demise of our democracy. It's happening right now, and I sincerely hope that you won't be a part of it. Do not be deceived. Corporations are not people. We are. Thank you.
Susan Moulter, formerly of Horseheads. I now live in the town of Ithaca. I'd like to go back in time about 40 years to the 1970s when a local engineer named Charles Young and his wife wrote a grant, and it was funded by the federal government, which at that time under President Jimmy Carter was giving money for renewable energy projects. This couple designed and built a methane generator in Steuben County on a farm, and it worked. This means taking the methane that the cows produce freely and properly building the equipment to convert it to energy. And this farmer was able to heat and light, he got enough electricity from the methane generator to run a big cow milking barn. This is in the 70s, folks, in our next door neighboring county. And when Charles Young and his wife started writing another grant to get more money because the farmer said, I'd like to do more of this, and my neighboring farmers would like to also. President Carter was not reelected, and Ronald Reagan came into office and took the solar panels off the White House roof and didn't offer money like this for renewable grants anymore, renewable energy grants anymore, and you know where we've gone since then. Why am I telling you this? Because, as you know better than I, from a proposal a long time ago by Casella, our landfill produces methane, and we could be collecting it and using it to generate electricity. Why aren't we? This is a positive thing that you legislators could be insisting that Casella do, which would benefit our county and our residents and our environment. Instead of bringing in toxic things, use the methane that's already being generated, and you have electricity as a cash crop. Now jumping to the present. Only about 2 hours ago, I learned of this map. This was made by Frank Patterson, who can't be here tonight. He's president of People for a Healthy Environment, and I have copies for all of you legislators. It's color-coded, so you know by the color. This is Chemung County, and the colors refer to the towns. Catlin is orange, and Erin is turquoise, and so on. And the different shapes, squares, circles, stars, refer to different entities, whether they are current gas wells already active, applications to drill or plug or convert a gas well. And in case you didn't know, a former vertical gas well can be converted to a horizontal well for fracking if desired and if allowed. And I'm not going to say anything more about this map except that it's fascinating and it's scary. And I'm leaving copies with you to see what's already in Chemung County. The landfill is one item of all the ones listed here. And when you put them all together, there are serious problems that we need to be thinking about and be aware of. The last thing I want to say is that I went to New York City a couple of weeks ago, along with 300,000 other people, and you may not know that 10 busloads of people went from Elmira, Binghamton, and Ithaca. And I've written an article which was published in the Leader last week, and I'll leave copies with you, but I just want to say two things. When you have that many people representing scientists, veterans, faith groups, migrant workers, union workers, you name it, all together and all united on the seriousness of a world problem that we've got to do something about now, or our children and grandchildren will have a planet to live on, not our children, but our grandchildren. And I want to mention one sign of all the many, many signs I saw that day. And the first time I saw this statement was at a rally in Albany several years ago on somebody's t-shirt. And before I say what it is, every time we plan an outdoor event, we have to think, oh, what if it rains? We better have a plan B, which, is either to have a tent or to go inside or whatever. This t-shirt said, there is no planet B. And at the march in Washington, there were countless signs that said, there is no planet B.
Your time is up.
And this means if we wreck what we've got, there's no alternative. Thank you.
My name is Candace Mingans. I live in Manhattan. This is the first time I've been here. My family and I are opposed to the expansion of the Chemung County landfill and of the acceptance of drilling waste. A recent article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette documents the problems Pennsylvania is having disposing of Marcellus drilling waste. Trucks carrying this waste have been tripping radiation alarms. So what are they doing? They're diluting the radioactive waste with non-radioactive materials and then sending it to the landfills. Landfill alarms sound when a truck is carrying waste that registers at 10 micrograms per hour or more. Anything that is below that gets counted as zero, which raises concerns about accumulation of this material over time. Anything above 140 micrograms per hour will likely go out of state. Drilling and fracking waste is by far the biggest TENORM, technically enhanced naturally occurring radioactive material, triggering 85% of the alarms tripped over the past year and a half in Pennsylvania. IC retired physics professor John Schwartz states, "It is important to note that these measures are of the level of radioactivity, not the lifetime of the radioactive source. Is it long-lived or short? Is it water-soluble? Measuring the level of radioactivity tells us nothing about the chemical elements present or their subsequent chemical activity in the landfill. Will they stay sequestered in the landfill, or will they migrate?" Expanding the Chemung County landfill in order to take Pennsylvania's drilling and fracking waste would be extremely short-sighted and foolhardy. The revenue it would bring would pale compared to the cost taxpayers will bear in health and in dollars in the event of a likely environmental disaster. My daughter and her husband own and operate a cidery in Manhattan. It's one of the first wineries in the county. They make wine from apples and are getting national attention, recently mentioned in the New York Times and written up in Cider Journal, which states these ciders represent among the very best being made in the United States. My daughter and her husband are part of a growing farm-to-table movement of young people starting small farms and creating high-quality, value-added products in the area. Does Chemung County want to be known for being home to a revival of small farms and fine ciders, or as the radioactive dump of the southern tier? I assure you, it cannot be both.
My name is Patricia Ladley. I lived in Elmira for 26 years. I'm now currently living in the town of Ithaca. And I'm coming to just talk about one single word, and that word is ban. The question is how to dispose of radioactive drilling waste. It's been called one of the industry's biggest problems, and it's what we're looking at here in Chemung County when we're talking about expanding the landfill. I think it's important to know that in New York State, 14 counties have now banned the acceptance and or use of drilling waste. These counties are Albany, Rockland, Putnam, Westchester, Orange, Ulster, Oneida, Tompkins, Nassau, Suffolk, Erie, Onondaga, Schoharie, and Clinton. And I would hope that in the not-too-distant future, we can say Chemung. There is strong and growing resistance to proposed expansion of landfills. As you know, it's taking place in Allegheny County, it's taking place in Niagara County, it's taking place in Erie County, and it's taking place right here in Chemung County, as you are well aware of. I'm going to leave with you, if I might, copies of the piece that I am reading so that you can see where bans are taking effect, not only in New York State, but all across the country. We're talking about Vermont, we're talking about Connecticut, we're talking about West Virginia, possibly Massachusetts in the not too distant future. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we got the third row. Fourth row, if there's anybody else coming on down.
Good evening. Good evening. I guess I would just like to quickly invite you all to Solutions for Sustainability, which is a day-long gathering to inform and inspire you. We aren't going to scold you. We aren't going to rattle at you in any way. You're going to have some of the world-renowned people speaking here, such as Maud Barlow. She's an internationally acclaimed authority on water issues. She's written extensively on the subject. I've been told I can't ask you how many of you have read her books, but you're not supposed to speak. Her latest book is Blue Future, Protecting Water for People and the Planet Forever. And she's chair of the board of the Food and Water Watch, and that's an international organization, and we have her coming to Corning. If you ever go to some of the Southern Tier Regional Planning and Development meetings, they used to be kind of interesting back in the 80s. You actually had people come in who had some interesting thoughts. Recently, all they do is ask the same old people from the same old places. And I don't really want to go to those meetings anymore. Another guy who's going to be speaking on Saturday is L.B. Zakes, and he's the Global VP for Media Relations of TerraCycle Incorporated. It's the world's leading upcycling company that converts difficult to recycle waste materials into eco-friendly, affordable products. It's a Fortune 500 company. He started out using worm poop, to sell in bottles at Walmart for putting on your plates. And now he's running, or helping to run, a Fortune 500 company. And he's going to be talking to all of us in Corning on Saturday. Doggone, I wish you folks would come, because, you know, I'm really excited about hearing him speak. Back in the early 1970s, I helped the kids at East High School in Corning run a recycling center there. And we had a heck of a lot of fun. We took in glass and aluminum and paper and tin cans, which are really steel. And we made money on it. And we did it every Thursday night when the stores were open. People would drop their stuff off. And we had local industries who actually did trucking for us. And we decided that we were going to burn out as a bunch of volunteers, and we ought to shift this over to the city of Corning. And you know what? The kids went to the city of Corning absolutely certain that those people would take this over because it was a money-making proposition and it was a good use of materials. And you know what they did? It was a 5-4 vote, and Mayor Nasser, how many of you remember Mayor Nasser? Hallelujah. That son of a gun was a tie-breaking vote again. The kids were brokenhearted. They were really disillusioned because they had faith in what they thought was good government. So therefore, we took our money and we bought backpacking equipment, and the kids learned how to buy groceries and do their own cooking. And we went backpacking for like this last 4-day weekend, and they had a ball. Some of those kids today are still good friends with each other. They've stood up in each other's weddings. Thank God we didn't have cell phones back then. But anyhow, it was a great time. And I'm telling you that I'm just happy to think that L.B. Zakes will be coming and talking to us. Don't you want to hear something creative, something different?
something that is dynamic. Doggone, gang. I'm expecting to hear from each one of you tomorrow morning saying that you're coming, and it's at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning that it starts.
Your time is up.
So please, we'll be expecting to hear from you. Bye now.
Ruth was reading from a postcard, and I have one here for each of the legislators about that symposium. My name is Gary McCaslin. I'm a retired American Baptist minister. I live in Corning. I feel called to speak because we are bound certainly together by more than just a river. We have an airport and a mall that we share. There's a large part of me that simply cannot understand why there has been such deliberation on this issue. I have spoken, I think, 3 or 4 times before about this topic. Why not just say no to the expansion and move on? And when I say that, three reasons possibly come to mind that might possibly deter a person from voting, just simply making that declaration, no, we're not going to expand, and move on. One has to do with money. I don't know whether anybody here in this room, the legislature, is benefiting from monetarily from this, but I imagine there's some friends or there's some organizations or some businesses that might be. The fact that 80% of the waste that comes into this landfill, 80% of the waste from Chemung County goes out of Chemung County to somewhere else so that Chemung County landfill can take in cuttings from Pennsylvania. That just makes me suspicious. Second reason why a person might deliberate on this is that they might just simply say, well, it's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal. The stuff that's coming north from Pennsylvania is not a big deal. And those of you that have said that the legislature has not responded, I understand, now this is second and third hand, so you have to forgive me. I understand that there was somebody in the legislature that responded, well, it's just dirt. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear that is, why not just keep it in Pennsylvania? I'm sure Pennsylvania dirt is just fine. But I'm sure there's no one in this room that would want to put that dirt in their backyard. They wouldn't want to put it in their compost pile. They wouldn't want to put it in their garden. You've heard all the scientific literature. When this leachate gets into the water, people get sick, people die. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal. And the third thing that I think a person might be swayed in wanting to deliberate more is because they would simply say, well, fracking is inevitable. New York State is one of the last holdouts of places where it's not officially required, not officially allowed by the state legislature. And the truth is that nothing is inevitable. We're all in charge of our decisions. We're all in charge of future generations. I have a 4-year-old granddaughter. Of course, she's very precocious. She's a wonderful little girl. I would not want to stand before her when she is 10 or 11 or 12 years old. And when she asked me the question, did you do anything, Papa? When they were talking about bringing landfill up, dirt cuttings up from Pennsylvania into the dump in Chemung County. And I would say to her, and I might say to her, oh, it was inevitable, Emily. I just couldn't do it. There was nothing that could be done. She would not be satisfied with that answer. She would not be satisfied with that answer. We all have a responsibility. We can influence the decision-making process. And tonight, I am asking you to move beyond deliberations and pass the 5 recommendations that were mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. I'm asking you to dump the dump and reduce the landfill. Thank you very much.
Next. Ron.
My name is Rachel Treichler. I live in the upper reaches of the Chemung River watershed in Steuben County. I'm an attorney. Also, when I was, in regard to what Gary was talking about, when I was in high school, I lived in Colorado on the western slope, not too far from Grand Junction. And I don't know if you know about Grand Junction, Colorado, but many buildings and schools in that city were built on mining waste from uranium mining that people were told at the time, this is perfectly safe. Don't worry about it, it's just rock. And there's nothing to worry about. And then at the time when I lived there, people were having to do a big cleanup and to take down their houses, take down their schools, and remove this radioactive rock. So I learned from that experience that the experts are not always right about what's safe and what's not safe and what has radioactivity in it and what doesn't. And what I'd like to talk to you tonight about is New York's low-level radioactive waste laws. Because we have very stringent laws in our state that ban radioactive waste from regular landfills and all sorts of things, and require that this waste be disposed of in very specially designed landfills, and that every load that is taken to one of these landfills be tracked and monitored. And in fact, partially because the citizens of Allegheny County were so concerned about the radioactivity that was planned to be put in their county when New York State decided to site a low-level radioactive waste dump in Allegheny County, the entire county came together and opposed that siting and did a lot of things, including civil disobedience, including a case that ultimately went to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it was determined that low-level radioactive waste dumps could not be cited against the local communities. And partially as a result of that decision, we do not have any low-level radioactive waste dump in New York State. So if something is categorized as low-level radioactive waste, it has to be trucked out of state, because the citizens of this state are very concerned about radioactive waste. Now we have the Marcellus Shale drill cuttings, and it's widely recognized that the Marcellus Shale is radioactive, has a number of radioactive elements in it. But still the DEC is allowing this to go into municipal landfills and construction and demolition landfills. Now, Mary Thorpe spoke earlier about the exemptions in a number of laws for oil and gas drilling wastes. But there are no exemptions in New York's low-level radioactive waste law for oil and gas drilling wastes. But the way that the DEC is not applying those laws is through an interpretation of a phrase in the law that says that naturally occurring radioactive waste is exempt from the law unless it is processed and concentrated. So the question is, for application of these laws, is the Marcellus Shale drilling waste processed and concentrated? And I would certainly argue that how can it not be? It's been ground up, mixed with all sorts of chemicals from above, brought to the surface, run through these complicated mills and dried and washed and all sorts of things. How is that not processed waste? And in fact, the EPA and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection recognize that a number of types of drilling wastes are technologically enhanced. That's the federal term, that's the Pennsylvania term. So the DEC has an unsupportable position here in my view, in terms of processed and concentrated. And I just want you to understand that it's that determination that is allowing, that the DEC is using to allow these radioactive wastes to come into the Chemung landfill, the Hakes landfill, the Highland landfill, and a number of other landfills in New York. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Earl Robinson from Lowman. I spend my whole day usually in the intensive care unit at the Arnold Hospital, taking care of the sickest patients in the county. And part of that is necessary. I have to protect myself and my coworkers against things like HIV, hepatitis C, and various other infectious agents. And we can do that pretty well. Although I see some people in the rest of the country are having trouble with that. But I can't protect myself against what you just heard, because there's no way. If this stuff gets spread around, people are going to be exposed to it and they're going to get sick. I would add to the last speaker's comments that during the course of the New York State DEC looking at siting of low-level radioactive waste dumps, they did an aquifer survey of the entire state, because they certainly did not want to put one of these radioactive waste dumps on top of an aquifer. And at that point, they found out that where the Chemung County dump is on top of an aquifer, north of the Chemung River. And the dump was not cited as a dump, it just became a dump because there was a hole there and they started filling up, as you will know by now. The other thing I would like to add, and I don't think I'm taking away from Rachel's talk, is that we're monitoring radiation in water coming out of landfills. Mind if I mention?
No, please do.
So the Hakes landfill. So, and they found that the radiation in the water is 3 times higher below the landfill than it is above the landfill, indicating that the leachate is probably contaminating the water. And, that's exactly what we said would happen. And if it's in there for 1,500 years, and it's going to keep doing that, and it's bioaccumulative, where are we going to be? And you don't have to worry about your granddaughter, you have to worry about to the 10th log generation of your progeny. Thank you.